Hi, I'm Arun George, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In today's episode, we'll be looking at the multiple billion-dollar investments from foreign firms into Reliance's telecom arm Jio Platforms. Then we'll be talking about a woman constable in Surat who was hailed for standing up to a minister's son. But first, we're talking about an official who was next in line to be the nation's chief election commissioner, being appointed as a vice president of the Asian Development Bank instead. The Indian Express's Ritika Chopra reported on Wednesday that Election Commissioner Ashok Lavasa had been appointed by the Asian Development Bank as a vice president. Sources told the Indian Express that Lavasa's appointment was finalized with the concurrence of the union government. But this seemingly routine appointment stood out because Lavasa was next in line to be the chief election commissioner and had over 2 years left in his term at the Election Commission. As the chief election commissioner, Lavasa would have been in charge of conducting assembly elections in multiple states, including Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Uttarakhand, Punjab, Manipur, and Goa. And then there was the fact that Lavasa had made headlines during the 2019 Lok Sabha elections. As the election commissioner, he alone opposed the clean chit given to Prime Minister Narendra Modi and former BJP President Amit Shah on charges of violating the Model Code of Conduct. We're now speaking with Ritika Chopra about the transfer of Lavasa, his event-filled term as election commissioner, and whether this has ever happened before. So, Ritika, could you start by telling us a bit about Ashok Lavasa?
So Ashok Lavasa is a retired IAS officer of Haryana cadre. He belongs to the 1980 batch. During his time as a civil servant, he had served as secretary in the Environment Ministry, in the Civil Aviation Ministry. He actually retired as finance secretary. He was appointed to the Election Commission as an election commissioner on the 23rd of January in 2018. And he's been an election commissioner since then.
So, could you talk about how Mr. Lavasa stood apart from the other election commission officials when it came to the 2019 poll?
So, Mr. Lavasa actually made a lot of headlines during the Lok Sabha elections in 2019. And this was a story that was broken by the Indian Express. This was because he had opposed the clean chit given by the commission to Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the then BJP President Amit Shah for their speeches that they had made during their political campaign during the Lok Sabha elections. Mr. Lavasa was of the opinion that Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Amit Shah had actually violated the Model Code of Conduct during their campaign. And actually, he had opposed the clean chit given on 5 instances. Let me just give you a few examples. For instance, there was a speech that Amit Shah had made in Nagpur, in which he had likened Wayanad, that was the second constituency that Rahul Gandhi was contesting from. He had likened Wayanad to Pakistan. Then there was a couple of other speeches in which Prime Minister Narendra Modi had actually sought votes in the name of the Balakot airstrikes that had happened. And as per an election commission guideline, you cannot actually use the armed forces for political gains. So Mr. Lavasa had actually made news because on 5 instances he had opposed the clean chit given to Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Amit Shah for alleged violations of Model Code of Conduct.
So there were also IT cases involving his family members that were filed following the government returning to power in 2019. Could you explain what happened there?
So we don't know when it started exactly, but from what I gather, I think almost immediately after the new government was elected, the IT department opened investigation against different members of his family on multiple fronts, actually. So, for instance, the IT department was looking at this 4-storied building that was owned by Mr. Lavasa, his wife, his sister, and his daughter, this building in Gurgaon. For instance, that was something that came under the scanner. All their bank accounts were under scrutiny. So they looked at all the cash deposits made immediately after demonetization. IT notices were served to his wife and his sister. The company that his son, Abir Lavasa, worked for, the company's name was Nourish Organics. Even that company got served IT notices. So there were multiple investigations that were opened on different fronts. And the IT report that was prepared towards the end of this investigation, which we had access to, this report had concluded that cash deposits amounting to about almost 5 lakh were made by members of the Lavasa family right after demonetization. The IT department also alleged that almost 46 lakh was paid in cash for construction of this Gurgaon building that I just mentioned, and that a payment of almost 10 lakh to the builder for the construction of this Gurgaon building was actually routed through the bank account of a domestic help. These allegations obviously have been denied and rubbished by the Lavasa family. So the IT department and all of its conclusions that it had made by the end of its inquiry was put together in one report and forwarded to the Department of Revenue in November 2019. We frankly don't know what happened after that. I mean, after the inquiry was over, whether the government actually initiated any action based on that inquiry, we don't know.
So now what position has Mr. Lavasa been appointed to?
The board of the Asian Development Bank has appointed Mr. Ashok Lavasa as a vice president. The Asian Development President actually heads a management team of 6 vice presidents. And he's going to be one of the 6 vice presidents. He will succeed a gentleman named Divakar Gupta. He is in charge of the private sector operations and public-private partnerships at the Asian Development Bank. Mr. Gupta completes his term on August 31st. The ADB spokesperson told us that they expect Mr. Lavasa to join in September. And a vice president is usually appointed for a term of 3 years, which can be extended by another 2. So he's likely to be the vice president of Asian Development Bank for the next 5 years. So you've written about how Mr. Lavasa was set to become the next chief election commissioner in a couple of years. And with this appointment, is there any possibility of him leaving that and kind of returning to the election commission? In order to actually accept the position at the Asian Development Bank, he will have to resign as the election commissioner here. So once you have resigned as the election commissioner, I mean, that completely rules out the possibility of becoming chief election commissioner, right? The actual line of succession currently is like Sunil Arora is the chief election commissioner. After him, Lavasa was supposed to become the next chief election commissioner. And now with Lavasa's exit, I mean, he hasn't resigned officially as of now, but with his exit, whenever that happens, that would put Sushil Chandra, who was the third election commissioner, as the next person in line of succession. So once he has resigned to join the Asian Development Bank, he can't really come back to the election commission. I mean, this completely rules him out as the next chief election commissioner. So is there any precedent for this, like where an official who's in line to be the next chief election commissioner leaves to join another organization? So this is actually the first time that an election commissioner who was in line to become the next CEC and probably is leaving prematurely. But there is one precedent in which an election commissioner, and this was Nagender Singh in 1973 when he was a chief election commissioner, he left of his own volition to become a judge in the International Court of Justice. So while this is the first instance of a sitting election commissioner in line to become the next CEC quitting before completing his term, there is one precedent where the chief election commissioner had resigned to take up another job elsewhere. So has Mr. Lavasa said anything about this appointment and leaving? So we did reach out to him for a comment yesterday and he refused to comment on the matter. We've also noticed that he hasn't made any official statement on this job offer yet. We're presuming that they would not have made this announcement without his consent, right? So we're all presuming that he will take up this offer. The ADB spokesperson, as I mentioned earlier, has confirmed to us that he's expected to join in September, but Mr. Lavasa has not made any official comment on this. So could you also tell us about how Mr. Lavasa's replacement will be appointed? So actually, there's no laid out procedure for appointing an election commissioner. The only thing that is laid down is that the election commissioner will be appointed by the president. This is done on the recommendation of the government. In the past, traditionally, all election commissioners have been government servants, retired government servants who become election commissioners, most of them being retired IS officers. There are, for instance, Mr. Sushil Chandra is actually a retired revenue services officer, and he'd probably be only the second chief election commissioner who belonged to the IRS. Before we get to the next segment, I just wanted your quick attention. One of the big reasons people say that they like this show is because it helps them understand the news better.
It provides them with the context they need to see the bigger picture. And there's perhaps no other place that does this better than the Indian Express's explained section. We on Three Things refer to the section regularly, and it helps us make this show. If you're a regular reader of the newspaper, you know how useful the explained section can be, especially when you're looking for in-depth analysis by the right experts. You can log into indianexpress.com/explained and access their coverage 24/7. Explained by the Indian Express, where news that matters is explained by experts who know the subject. Now, back to the show.
Let me welcome Google to be our strategic partner in Jio platforms.
That's the chairman of Reliance Industries Limited, Mukesh Ambani, who was addressing the company's closely watched annual general meeting on Wednesday when he made the announcement. Google is the latest investor in the company's Jio platforms, shelling out 33,000 crore rupees or $4.5 billion to buy a 7.7% stake. Starting with Facebook, which bought a 9.99% stake in the company, Reliance has sold a 32.84% stake in Jio Platforms Limited to multiple foreign investors, most of them from the US. With Google on board, Jio now has business arrangements with 5 of the biggest technology giants from the US. Firms that compete against each other in other markets, like Facebook and Google, or chip makers Intel and Qualcomm, are among the firms that have invested in Jio Platforms and will partner the company in developing new products. We're now speaking with Pranav Mukul, who reports on the telecom sector, about what these investments mean for Jio. So, Pranav, you've written about how Jio has raised funds and how it's more than the total sum invested in the entire tech industry last year. What's the significance of this growing investment in an Indian telecom by American big tech?
So basically, American technology companies specifically, they have been looking at India as a huge market for their services. They have almost saturated the American market. They're not allowed to operate in China because of its laws. So the next logical step is to come into India, and they've been looking to come into India in a big way. And it's not just the companies that have invested in Geo, but other companies as well. Walmart purchased a majority stake in Flipkart back in 2018 for $16 billion. Amazon has already invested $5 billion with a promise to invest a billion more in India. And other than this, also several companies have been making greenfield organic investment into the Indian market for a long time now. But what's happened here is Jio is providing a very huge platform with a variety of services. It's not just the telecom infrastructure, but there's streaming app that Jio has. There's a music streaming app that it has. It's getting into e-commerce. Reliance is already there in organized retail. So there's a lot of other avenues where there's possibility for these big tech companies to enhance their data profile and enhance their presence in the Indian market. Added to that, the significance also is that there's sort of a vacuum being left now with the government signaling curbs on investment from Chinese companies, and also particularly after it banned the 59 apps with Chinese links, including TikTok, including UC browser and UC News, which are run by Alibaba, which is one of the biggest Chinese investor in Indian startups. So in that particular situation also, the bullish outlook of American companies, that assumes significance.
So, is there any past instance but of rival US companies like Google and Facebook investing in the same company like this? And what does that mean for Jio?
So particularly for Google and Facebook, they have been rivals. You're right. They've been competing for ad revenues, not just in the US, but also in India. It said that both of them together command almost 80% of India's online ad revenues. So, they have been head to head on that front. But now with Jio, it's not just investment, but they're also entering into strategic partnerships with Jio. So Facebook has, Facebook's messaging platform, WhatsApp, that will help Jio in its online commerce venture, which is JioMart. So their kirana shop owners and small shopkeepers will be able to interact with their customers, take payments, everything on WhatsApp. Whereas Google is planning to develop an Android-based operating system for affordable smartphones along with Jio. So these are slightly non-competing ventures that both of them are getting into with Jio. So, it could be said, and experts have pointed this fact out, that for them to invest together in one company, while it's a rare event, it does signal that they see certain opportunities for growth despite having a stake in a company where a rival company also is invested.
So you mentioned how Google is developing a phone with Jio, and Jio's pushing as much in the tech gadget space as the telecom space. What is Jio's motivation to make a big push into this sector suddenly?
So the company that has seen all this investment happen over the past 4 months, including from Facebook, Google, Intel, Qualcomm, that company is called Jio Platforms. So this company is not just telecom infrastructure, it's not just a service provider. It's also into a lot of other things that has to do with data. So like I said, it's there in the online commerce. It provides video streaming apps, it provides music streaming, news, television, all of these things. So Jio as a company, it is looking at the play of data. Like Mr. Mukesh Ambani has also said, data is a new oil. So he's looking at the entire, right from upstream to downstream, everything as a self-owned entity. So in the entire ecosystem, it cannot be just that there's telecom infrastructure as other companies have traditionally had, or as we know of telecom companies traditionally. Entire gamut of gadgets, apps, infrastructure, everything has to be there. So that's what they're primarily looking at, controlling the entire ecosystem of the internet, how a person accesses, what they do on the internet when they access it, everything.
So with the Google investment, Mr. Mukesh Ambani declared that the investments into Jio are kind of over for now. But what is the advantage in Jio being able to erase its debt this quickly?
So the debt situation was for Reliance Industries at a group level, and last year sometime Mukesh Ambani had promised shareholders that the company would become net debt free. So most of these proceeds, as we know, that Reliance Industries, which is the parent company of Jio Platforms, all this amount that it has received has been used towards cleaning of that debt, and that has gone towards this promise that Mr. Ambani made about making Reliance Industries a net debt-free company. And there have been other deals too contributing to this cause. The BP joint venture that Reliance Industries got into for oil retail outlets, then the Saudi Aramco deal, which he said yesterday that has been delayed, but all those proceeds are moving towards making Reliance Industries, the parent company, a debt-free company.
And is there any kind of advantage for Jio in the fact that it's kind of seen as this company that's raised money and is sort of done with raising money?
So for Jio, it's not just investment, but also with companies like Facebook, Google, Intel, Qualcomm. These are some of the companies that are experts in their own segments. Facebook, Google are huge in internet. Intel, Qualcomm are big names, well-known names in hardware technology. So all that expertise now comes on board to Jio. So it's not just money that Jio has raised through these investments, but of course money is a big part of it, but it has also got into strategic partnerships with this company that helps it access the expertise that these other companies have built over the years.
And now, what is the big challenge for other telecom companies given what Jio's managed over these last few months?
So, now globally it's happening that telecom companies are moving away from being just infrastructure service providers, which is just selling the SIM card and letting you access the internet and letting you make voice calls or send SMSs. Now they're getting into this whole big data play where they'd like to be controllers of all the data that's being consumed on their networks. So, the main initial challenge would be to have that entire end-to-end infrastructure in place to be able to match up to what Jio is planning to do.
And finally, we're talking to Kamal Saeed, who reports from Surat in Gujarat, about a constable who made national headlines last week after a video of hers was shared on social media. We started by asking him what position Sunita Yadav held in the Surat police.
Sunita Yadav is a girl who has been working since last 3 years as Lok Rakshak Dal. See, the Lok Rakshak Dal is like that. After 4 or 5 years, once you work honestly and without any taint, if you work in a good character, then and then only you are being appointed as a police constable in the police department. And Sunita Yadav has joined the police department 3 years ago. She has done her MA degree, post graduation in MA, and she has been working in police armed unit. This unit is located in police headquarters only. When and where the city police constable demands any extra police force, so the police constables or LR, which are in the headquarters, they are being deployed to certain police stations.
On the night of the 8th of July, Sunita was posted on a street in Surat to enforce the norms in place to control the movement of people.
On 8th of July, she caught a car and found that 5 persons were traveling in it. So she took away the key, and these 5 people were not putting on mask. And they were traveling late in night at 10:35 p.m. So the curfew order starts at 10 p.m. in the night till morning 6 p.m. So she caught them, and when she questioned them, they were unable to give satisfactory answers. And even they had not put on the mask. So she told all the 5 youths to come out from the car and stand aside. Meanwhile, one of the youth, he called up Minister of State for Health, Kumar Kanani's son, Prakash Kanani, who turned up to the spot immediately as he was residing nearby. And he told that woman, why you have caught these people? She replied, they had violated the police commissioner's notification of curfew. So there was an heated exchange of arguments between the minister's son Prakash with the police constable Sunita Yadav, in which Prakash had also threatened her that he would use his influence and make her stand on the same location for 365 days.
Sunita spoke with the Minister of State for Health, Kishore Kannani, over the phone. Kamal says an angry Sunita also called the local police inspector for help but got none. Meanwhile, the minister's son called the region's assistant commissioner of police. Kamal says that the ACP told Sunita to release the men without registering any offense. A troubled Sunita returned home and was later told that she was posted back at the police headquarters. But the entire incident, the calls, and Sunita's conversations with her superiors was recorded on video by a fellow constable.
Sunita was accompanied by 2 or 3 constables, LR, Lok Rakshak Dals, and it is the duty of the constables to record each and everything when they catch anybody violating the curfew orders or any other thing, violating the COVID-19 guidelines. So her colleagues were recording this video.
ગુજરાત સરકારમાં નથી મારા ફાધર છે ને એ ધારાસભ્ય છે અને
ધારાસભ્ય છે શું નામ છે
કુમારભાઈ કાનાણી આરોગ્ય મંત્રી છે
આરોગ્ય મંત્રી છે ઓકે ઓકે બરાબર સમજાઈ ગયું હવે તમારી ગાડીમાં જે આ ગુજરાત લખ્યું છે શું છે શું બોર્ડ માર્યું છે
ગુજરાત એમએલએ ગુજરાત લખ્યું છે
એમએલએ જરા એક વખત જોયો તો એક વખત
When she didn't got support from her superior officials, she got herself locked in her room and she fell ill. Even on the next day when she reported to her original police headquarters, she was told that now she should not go back to Varacha police station area. So she was under mental trauma. But apart from this, she had taken up the task that I have to fight for this. And she called up some of the local media person and shared the entire issue. And also the video recording and audio recording of her conversations with the superior police officials like B.N. Sagar, police inspector of Varacha, and C.K. Patel, ACP of Varacha division. And it has gone viral on the social media.
The release of the video clip sparked outrage on social media and support poured in. This sparked a fresh chain of events.
After this thing has gone viral on social media, the police commissioner, Mr. R.B. Brahmbhatt, had ordered an inquiry into the incident, and finally a complaint of violation of police commissioner's notification, curfew orders and Epidemic Disease Act Section 3 was registered against the minister's son and 2 of his friends who quarreled with the police constable, and they have been released on bail.
The police commissioner also instituted an inquiry against the inspector and the ACP who refused to assist Sunita. Incidentally, the inquiry was initially handed to the very ACP who told her to release the men, but later it was transferred to another official. But Sunita then got police protection. We asked Kamal why.
Sunita has been regularly receiving, she had till now received 2 threat calls from some unknown number, in which the caller had told her that she had worked a lot to serve the nation. Now she cannot survive for a long time. So she felt that she would be in trouble. Somebody might attack her. So she sought and she met police commissioner, Mr. Brambhatt, and requested him to give her police protection. Following which 2 women police constables were deployed at her home and 2 male constables, armed constables, have been deployed on the main gate of her apartment.
Kamal said that Sunita had also told him of calls in which people had promised her cash in order to not release the clip of the incident. Kamal says Sunita told the police commissioner that she wanted to resign and has been asked to submit a formal letter of resignation.
She told me that she could not survive with such pain of humiliation which she had received from the minister's son. So for that, she contacted her brother. She has 2 brothers, and they, on their advice, she had taken such a extreme step. While talking to me, she had exchanged her dream that she wanted to become an IPS officer. And she also wanted some leave to study and crack the UPSC exam, so that she can come and work again and serve the nation.
So why would she want to join the police force again after this experience?
She had understood that as she was coming from low-rank police official, her issues was not being properly sorted out, you can call it. She felt that if she would have been an IPS officer and if such step would have been taken, then she would definitely given a good lesson to the minister's son and others.
You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show, as always, was edited and mixed by our producer Joshua Thomas. Before we go, here's another reminder to check out Indian Express's Explained page. You can log on to indianexpress.com/explained and find in-depth analysis by the right experts. It has everything you need to know and understand the news better and see the bigger picture. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet to us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.